So they go deep into the catacombs so that Fortunato can taste the Amontillado, which does not even exist. And it's dark, and they have a torch with them. And the two of them wind up down there. And of course, one outsmarts the other. Fortunato never even sees it coming. And they're walking along, and there's a bit of a sort of a cove in the wall. And we know that Montresor has premeditated this because he has chains here, and he has fresh mortar so that he can rebuild the wall in front of the little cove where he chains up Fortunato. So before Fortunato knows it, he is chained up, and the conversations, of course, continue from there. Fortunato, of course, tries to take it as a joke. Ha ha ha, he. A little hard to read here, but we're going to make the best of it. Yes, I said, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. But before that, there is a succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form. So Fortunato goes, "Bah!" And for a split second, Montresor thinks that he is in fact broken loose. And this really shows the madness of Montresor. Montresor pulls out a knife, a rapier, and gropes about within, and realizes that in fact Fortunato was still chained up. Now that alone is, I guess if you're going to kill someone, that's perfectly legitimate to make sure. However, I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacomb and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied, so he calms himself down, puts away the rapier, calms himself down, then reapproaches the wall here and really lets him have it. To try to quiet down Fortunato. So do you see how carefully Poe writes that? Fortunato lets loose with a scream. Montresor pulls out a rapier, a little dagger, reaches around, feels the wall that he's building in front of Fortunato, and says, "Oh, this is fine." And then he takes a step back, calms himself, then comes forward, sticks his head in, and screams his head off. Right? So it's really a little crazy here. Right? And sadly, Fortunato is starting to sober up, and that's when he says, he, ha, ha, ha. We'll have a good laugh about this, and ain't no laughing going on here, because Montresor is slowly building the blocks here in front of Fortunato, and he's going to leave him there to die. All right, so let us review here what we've been talking about. Back to the criteria. Does he punish with impunity? No. Montresor, 50 years later, has thought about this so much that he retells it, probably on his deathbed. Maybe it's a boast, maybe it's a confession. Either way, it's been on his mind. In that last paragraph that we read earlier, my heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. So he explains away the dampness in his heart, a little regret for killing his friend, by saying, "Oh, it was the catacombs." But as we talked about with Hawthorne, you can mash stuff down in your subconscious. I didn't regret that. It was the catacombs that made me feel that way, but it's going to come out. So he does, in many ways, get punished because this is on his mind. And does, in fact, the person he is punishing know that he's being punished? He does not, because there was no reason, right? Never does Fortunato say, oh, you really got me good here. Good for you. You got me good here. No, because our theory, and it's just a theory, is that the motive for the murder is jealousy. Montresor is feeling inadequate. He lives alone, so he has not reproduced. He is not respected. He will not be missed as he thinks Fortunato will. So if he's killing him out of his personal jealousy, there's no revenge to be had. Fortunato is never going to say, oh, you got your revengeance on me, because there's nothing to avenge, right? So it's kind of silly, but it kind of stuck with me, whoever taught me this. When you point your finger at someone accusing them, there are three fingers pointing back at you, right? There are three fingers pointing back at you. So this is all very interesting, and you must remember that the motivations, the drives, the things that make you think, the things you do the things you do, come from within you. We are not just, we want to think we're just responding and that other people prompt us to do things, hand puppet. People prompt us to do things, and they may prompt us, I'm not diminishing that, but we must recognize that how we behave is a result of our own inner drives. It's just like when we're studying literature here. Your interpretation, my interpretation of the literature says as much about me, right? What is interpreted, how something is interpreted says as much about the interpreter as it does about what is being interpreted. Think of you and a friend. Some of you must have friends. You and a friend, and there's a third person. You think the third person is awesome. The other person thinks the third person is a complete idiot and doesn't want to hang out with them. It probably says more about each of you than it does about the third person, your view of that person, right? So we are driven by what's inside of us. We will see things that are maybe not even real, as we see with the black cat, and maybe even the man of the crowd. We perceive things in a very particular way that is a reflection of what's inside of us. Remember what Hawthorne taught us. The fiend in his own shape is less hideous than when he rages in the breast of man. The fiend is raging in the breast of Montresor here, and I believe he pays a price of 50 years of guilt for it. And the person he kills never has a clue, never a hint that he is having revenge taken upon him.